Now we're arguing. You go first. You go first. You go first. And so perhaps Karma would come up and share some of the story of Tibet, some of his story, and then how that might relate to where we are here today. And then Pastor Mark, I've asked him to talk about the gospel and how that relates to peace and what that means for the faith communities, for the Christian communities that live here, and what that work of peace might be. And so we will listen very appreciatively and respectfully, and thank you, Karma, for coming and sharing this story with us.
Kembola, Tashtile, all the other EWAM Sangha members and people are gathered here today. First of all, as a Tibetan, just to be standing here with the image of the Yum Chemo in front of me, with prayer flags fluttering all around us, with a total atmosphere of peace and serenity here in Montana. It is difficult for me as a Tibetan, a single family living here, to sort of really convey the sense of joy that I have to be here. Then I also wanted to humbly acknowledge that I am a lay Tibetan. My knowledge of the scriptures is not deep, but at the same time, I am really proud of the Tibetan spiritual heritage. I know that that is one sphere where Tibetans have a lot to offer to our global brothers and sisters. And from that perspective, I stand here with pride to share just a little bit of that spiritual heritage we talk about. Most Tibetan practitioners, whether they are monks or nuns, have something in Tibetan we call a Tsawe Lama, or a root teacher. For a lay Tibetan like myself, we don't really have like a personal teacher. Instead, all the lay Tibetans, or at least the huge majority of them, accept His Holiness the Dalai Lama as a personal root teacher. So today, the thoughts that I want to share with you, trying to seek spiritual solutions to social and cultural problems, so much of that, in fact, the huge majority of that is from the thoughts of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, as you know, His Holiness the Dalai Lama travels all over the world, speaking ceaselessly on the topics of global problems, social problems, and how we can best overcome them. For me today, standing in front of you, the problem seems to be to identify the core essence of his teachings, simply because his teachings are like an ocean. There is so much depth in his knowledge that for me the problem is trying to choose the essence. But again, on deeper reflection, it's not really that difficult a choice, because over the years that I've been privileged to hear His Holiness speak to global communities, the one theme that is the closest to his heart, and the one theme that I would term as the essence of all his teachings, is his thought on the development of a human heart that will ultimately lead to compassion. And I have heard him time and again convey that in compassion, in the development of the human heart, lies the solution to much of the global problems. Now we live here in the 21st century in an era of unprecedented progress and development. And all this is due to the progress of science, technology, where we've made so much of material progress. We celebrate that progress. We rejoice in it. But at the same time, if tonight, after this wonderful gathering, if all of us go home, switch on to our televisions or to our radios, we are sure going to be inundated with news of strife there, war in another place, famine in another, hunger at another place. Despite all the so acclaimed material and scientific progress, it is clear that we are not nearly reached the goal of solving the global problems. And so it is at this point that His Holiness humbly opines that while we have invested so much of our time, so much of our energy in the study of science, mathematics, is it not time for us to invest just a little bit of more time to the development of the human heart? Because according to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, it is the development of that human heart that can perhaps solve social problems. When we talk about it, at first glance, it seems like a simplistic view to think that all social problems can just be changed because of a change of heart. But, to me at least, it does make some sense, because what is society? What is community? It is nothing but a collection of human beings. If we have one human who is compassionate, whose heart is developed, if we have two, if we have more and more persons with good compassionate hearts, it is possible for us to build compassionate communities. That is the premise of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. And it does make sense to me, because building a compassionate person, building a compassionate community is not really something that we can mandate. It's not even something that we can legislate. People have been trying it for hundreds of years. So, since we know that peaceful communities are not going to come as a result of force, of coercion, of rules and legislation, doesn't it make sense for us to invest in giving our children an education that is centered around the development of the heart? As an educator, I'm truly excited about that. So we talk about the compassion, and one reason why we need it is because we need to make a global society that is truly peaceful. But let me tell you another thing. There is again one more reason, perhaps a much more important, perhaps a much more selfish reason why we should invest in the development of human qualities, why we should be compassionate. And that is because, according to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the development of compassion can lead to happiness. And isn't that what all of us are seeking? His Holiness the Dalai Lama certainly feels so. From the time that we are born to the time that we die, everyone in some shape or form is chasing that elusive goal of happiness. Now there are, millions of galaxies and stars, and I don't know whether we have discovered the secrets of all the galaxies. But if we focus on human beings, if you observe the behavior of human beings, one thing seems beyond debate. It doesn't matter what race you are, what color you are, everyone seems to be searching happiness. We want happiness, we don't want sadness. But how do we get happiness? Like all young men, I used to think that perhaps it could be something that money could give me, perhaps fame, recognition, and to some extent, I think that that might be true in some cases. But I also know, all of us know, that people with wealth, people with influence can also be very unhappy, can also be very lonely. And so, viewed from this perspective, it seems like we should be compassionate, we should be kind, even if it is only to make ourselves more happy. I think His Holiness the Dalai Lama was only half joking when he said at one of his teachings that we should practice compassion selfishly. Because in practicing compassion, we are not only reaching out and making others happy, but we are getting back something. So, what is it in compassion that will give us happiness? In truth, the answer is so simple. Through compassion, we get love. And whether we admit it, whether we think about it, whether we consciously acknowledge or not, love, human warmth, those are the qualities which are going to give us far more happiness than any other thing in this world. So, very simple advice to all the persons gathered here. I have 3 beautiful daughters. It is the same advice that I would give them. If you want to be happy, reach out to people, engage them, be compassionate. Only then can some amount of warmth, happiness come your way. So I hope that, by sharing these few ideas, it will play a small part in all of us going home with a new or, like a fresh resolve for all of us to be the best human beings that we can, to share our compassion all around us, knowing that that is truly in our own self-interest. Thank you so much.
Pastor Mark, I don't know your last name.
Gravrock.
Gravrock.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Gravrock. And you are the pastor of the Lutheran Church here in Arlee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you
for having me. Good evening. I've been doing a lot of listening all afternoon long. There's been a lot to hear, a lot of wonderful stuff to hear, some troubling stuff to hear. As a Christian, one of the pieces that troubles me is that so often in the history of the West, Christians have been part of the problem about peace. And that's painful to hear and to hear again. It's true. I think what happens so often in the history of the West is that whenever the gospel of Christ has gotten wedded together with power and privilege and aggression, it perverts that gospel. It perverts Christ's message. And often to a point where it's totally unrecognizable. And I heard it again this afternoon. It makes me want to really just be quiet and keep listening and not talk anymore. But I'm supposed to talk because I'm on a panel here. Maybe it's the same in spiritual traditions around the world. I don't know. If in other places where spiritual traditions get wedded to power and privilege, they get perverted, they get twisted. I don't know about other places. I know it's true here. It's happened again this week, commemorating this very day, when we have a pastor, a Christian pastor in one part of our country, threatening to burn the Quran. Last I heard he decided not to. Has that changed, or did I miss the news? In a mistaken notion about who was responsible for 9/11. And all it does is create more pain and more violence. It was Jesus who stood over his capital city as he was about to enter it for the last time. And he wept And he said, if only you knew the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. What I've been asked to talk about and share with you this afternoon is something of the fruits of spiritual practice from a Christian perspective. And from a Christian perspective, that means both in terms of Jesus' spiritual teachings and in terms of Jesus and who he is and what he's done. In terms of his spiritual teachings, what he teaches has much in common with much of what we hear all around the world. That as you practice Christian faith, if you truly practice it, some of the fruits that come from that are compassion, understanding, humility, patience, mutual acceptance and embrace, hospitality. Those are all fruits of what Jesus taught. The night before he died, he was at supper with his friends, and he told them a little story about himself as the vine and his friends as the branches. He said, you have a purpose. This is the fruit-bearing piece. You have a purpose. The purpose as a branch is to bear grapes. That's what grapes do. And they only do that, of course, as they're connected to the vine. I'm the vine. You are the branches. And he told his friends, I want you to stay connected with me. Because as you do, then the sap that comes from me will flow through you, and it will produce those things that I'm producing in you. The compassion, the kindness, the understanding, the humility. And you can almost hear those friends of his asking, so if we're supposed to bear fruit, what kind of fruit are you talking about? There are lots of places where the Bible talks about fruit. Sometimes it's justice. Sometimes it's the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Lots of different kinds of fruit. But that night, he said, the fruit I want you to bear is that you obey my commandments. Well, what commandments? He said, I've only got one. Love one another as I have loved you. Well, that's all. And then he went on to say, by the way, greater love has no one than this, than the one give up his or her life for those that he loves. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just give up your life. And that's the point where there aren't any Christians. I don't meet very many of us, including myself, that ever do that ever give up our lives for one another. Maybe in little ways once in a while. Because that's where ourselves get in the way. The fear and the anxiety, the greed and the hunger for more, the fear of those who are different from ourselves, the uneasiness about what's coming next, and my big ego that keeps getting in the way. If it weren't for all that, we'd be able to live that compassion, understanding, kindness pretty easily. For Christians practicing spiritual practice, the heart of it all is Christ on the cross. That image of Christ on the cross has gotten abused in lots of different ways, and there are lots of different ways to understand it. The way that's making more and more sense to me, as I'm becoming an almost 60-year-old Christian by now, as I age, this is the way that Christ on the cross is making more and more sense to me. As Christians look at Christ on the cross, they look at him and say, that's what God is about. That God is the one who takes this entire globe, all of its people, all of its creatures, the globe itself. God is the one who takes all of that into himself. All of the pain and all of the sorrow, all of the suffering, all of the wrong and all of the evil, and takes it into himself and says, I will make it my own. When Christians look at Christ on the cross, they realize that's who God always is. And for me, that's what finally begins to unleash compassion. When I look and see who God is, when I look and see that God is willing to take everything, including all of my own aggression and wrong, on God's own self. That's where, for Christians, that's where compassion is born, and understanding, and kindness and humility and commitment to embrace one another as fellows in this whole globe, as a community that's working for peace and justice together. That's enough. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I feel like I should make my mom get up here. No. My mother's sitting out there, and my mother is such an example to me of how people should live and be in the world. And I appreciated Pastor Mark's acknowledgement of our frailty as human beings, and I appreciated Karma's words about talking about working towards becoming compassionate people, and that we have to develop our heart. And it seems that the spiritual work that we need to do to make change really begins with ourselves, and that we have to start with ourselves first. Sometimes it's easy to go out and fix other people, and I can sure see what they need to do, but I'm doing okay. But we know that we all need to start with ourselves, and that we have this predicament of being foolish sometimes and being frail, and sometimes we betray others, and sometimes we fall very short of what we wish to be. And so I think that I believe deeply that a long time ago, all of my relatives and ancestors that lived here were so strong because they were so aware that they were spiritual beings and that they were living in a spiritual world. And this is still a supernatural world, even though sometimes we choose to let ourselves become so distracted that we forget that everything around us is sacred and that it is spiritual, whatever words you want to use. And we forget that that's the most important part of who we are, and that probably all of the things that we cannot see are those things that we should really be working at. And those things are love, compassion, working on our heart. And so I am deeply appreciative of the respect of the EWAM community here, of the spiritual prayers and traditions of my relatives and ancestors, of the nature of the sacred geography of this land that was before. I appreciate all of the different faiths that have come together, that people are here in a good way to listen to one another. And that means something to me, because I think that America, for me, there's still a coming of age for America, and that's a reckoning with what happened and how this country was created. And a really wise woman named Velma Wallace, who's a lot younger than me and way wiser than I am. She's Gwich'in from Alaska. She wrote a story called Two Old Women, and one of the lessons in that story was about a leader who made a really important decision out of fear. And then when he realized he had done something wrong, he didn't just say, oh, well, I did something wrong, I'm going to go on my way. He knew that he had to go back to what was done wrong. And so America, there's a truth-telling that's needed in our country, and a reckoning of how this country has treated the other, whether it's been American Indian people. It's happening today with new immigrants that come to our country. We're still doing that to each other. We still do that in this community. We live segregated. You know, we've had 100 years of segregation in a reservation community. So I think that there's so much work to do right here, but I think that the work that we do with ourselves and in our own communities makes a different world. It's not glamorous sometimes to do work in your home it's easier to do an international exciting adventure. But the hard work is right here in our own families. Peace starts in our home, doesn't it? It starts with ourselves, and it starts with our home. And so for me here, I feel that I really want a reckoning and a truth-telling about the past 100 years of history. I think that that's healing when we speak the truth. I think that telling our stories brings healing. And so I thank you for listening to the stories from my community, for listening so respectfully and so thoughtfully. And I just, I appreciate the parallels that of the history of people from Tibet that they share with Indian people. And I'm in admiration of their capacity and their willingness to be forgiving. And I have great respect for that. And so I think that's the message that I would like to end on, is that our work, whatever our faith is, really begins with ourselves, and it starts in our home. And that even though we are frail and we're foolish and we're all capable of falling far short of the mark, but that through our spiritual work, the development of our heart, we can be remarkable people at times, and we can be extraordinary at times, and we can have love and be capable of great compassion. And the example that I always hold in my life is my mother, and she is, I guess, the benchmark for me to be like her. Because she just continues. She's the most loving woman. She's the most compassionate woman. And sometimes it's easy for us to love those that are really lovely. And the really amazing people are the ones that can love the lost cause. My mother's saying in her kitchen says, "A lost cause can find its way in a noble dream." And so as human beings, we're kind of lost causes sometimes, aren't we? So maybe we need to start sharing a noble dream, and that would be that we can live as spiritual people, that we can develop as spiritual people and treat each other as such. And so, Mom, thanks for being such a grand and great woman, and thank you for being here, everybody, today.
Hand, thank you, to Julie, to Pastor Mark, to Karma. My life is going to be changed for the best for these wise words that we heard today that really inspire us, and we can rise up to this inspiration today. Thank you all.
This is one of our absolutely extraordinary organizers. Donna, last name?
Malika.
Donna Malika. How hard was it, Donna?
Oh, it wasn't hard. We had a planning group of different organizations in the community, and we've been working together for about 4 months. And it was really lots of fun and a pleasure.
Yeah, you look rested, and you know, I mean, it's pretty miraculous when you're throwing a festival to come and look all rested.
Well, we're all pleased with the day. It was a wonderful day.
Yeah, well, did you order the sun?
We hoped for it.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much. It's perfect. It was a fabulous festival.
Yes, we're happy.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug? Well, besides Donna runs Hanging Art.
I'm an co-owner of the Hanging Art Gallery, and I am one of the founding members of our Arley Community Development Corporation. And so I'd like to take a plug for the fact that that organization helps the collaborations that go on in the Valley. So we're grateful for that.
Is that a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit. It's got a volunteer board, and most of the work that we do is done by volunteers. So it develops capacity in the community, and so that's part of how we brought the groups together to collaborate on the Peace Festival. Is various groups that have been working in and around the Community Development Corporation. So, and we've all been partners. EWAM's been a partner in an arts and culture planning process that we've done in the Valley. So it's been very nice. Yeah.
And I would like to introduce Claire, and she's going to say a few words about the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center. Thank you.
Hello, thank you all for being here. I'm here to represent Betsy Daig, the director of the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center. She wrote a special message for everyone, and I'm going to read it in her behalf. In Betsy's words, "The violence of our world and the sad events of September 11th, 2001 cannot be far from anyone's mind today. It is easy to feel insignificant and even hopeless in the face of these thoughts. But September 11th is another anniversary as well, one that offers us great hope and significance. On September 11th, 1906, Mohandas Gandhi took his first action of nonviolent resistance against a world that he saw as terribly unjust. Here was a man who, despite being trained as a lawyer, was too shy to actually practice law. And yet, he knew that the problems of his day were only being compounded by an eye for an eye mentality. And he knew that he must become the change he wanted to see in the world. The Jeanette Rankin Peace Center has fostered his idea of, quote, being the change for 24 years. Our vision is to be a place where people come to learn, to reflect on the issues of the day, to be inspired and moved to action. Each year, the Peace Center organizes over 50 events to make that vision a reality. Speakers, films, rallies, classes, discussion groups, service projects, and much more. They started the fair trade movement in Missoula and continue to be the place people think of when they want to shop fairly. They have a booth here today and invite you to stop by. Learn more about their free trade store, the community dish pantry, their library of inspiring resources, and the Peace Park they are creating where visitors can reflect on peacemaking. The Jeanette Rankin Peace Center makes peace visible for our community in so many ways and serves as a resource and gathering place for many who want to be the change. They are supported by membership, so I urge you to join the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center and add your voices and enthusiasm. Next Sunday, September 19th, they are throwing a peace party to celebrate one world and one family working together for peace and justice. You'll enjoy an organic dinner, Missoula's largest silent auction, great raffle prizes, and a live auction of international dinners. Entertainment is provided by our 2010 Peacemaker, the Lewis and Clark Children's Choir, and the Ethan Thompson Band. You can find out more and buy tickets and raffle tickets for the party at the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center booth. You can also sign up there to become a member. Let's together create hope, teach and inspire each one and another, and be the change. Yours truly in peace and hope, Betsy Daig.
So now, Thank you for painting her. You did such a beautiful job. Oh my God. Sonam. Sonam.
You're gonna be on
awesome.
TV. Wow.
Yeah, not movies, but TV. Yeah, it's good. Yes, I'll make sure they've had the spelling of your name correct. Was it difficult to get the colors just like you wanted them?
Yeah, sometimes we have to do a couple of times mixing.
Yeah, well, you've been at it for a couple of years now. Saram, is it true that when you paint her eyes, that it in fact enlivens it? It's as in enlivening Tonka? That's why she feels a little different, huh? So did you do that last?
No, usually we do, right? But it's last minute, we don't want to spell on a kind of any pen, that's how we do, right? Because if we do eyes first, then if we spell or something, then very difficult, right? That's why we do. That's the reason. But here, because I had to do earlier, because I can't reach, I have to stand on her lap or something like that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to finish our part, and then I came down.
Did she look back at you?
I don't know.
Thank you so much.
So now we have the good fortune of hearing Namchak Khenpo, who is Tukusangak Rinpoche's brother. And he has studied for many years at the seminary in India and reached the level of Khenpo, which is the highest level of scholarship. But I've taken teachings from him and practiced with him and so on. And what I've come to find that I love so much about him is that he's actually put these things into practice, both in doing ceremony on a profound level where you can really feel the power of it, but also in actually taming his own mind so that his great compassionate aspirations he can actually manifest. And all of us at EWAM have found in all of our interactions with him that he's just ceaselessly able to be kind and compassionate and happy. I mean, this is the thing that I think someone was mentioning before, is that if you want to be happy yourself, work to make others happy. And Khenpo does this on a daily basis, on a constant basis. So now he'll say a few words.
Ane, taringa so tereng tiso dwala, dwala ane lejer songe, pe mambo je ke lejer deso pe masi saba jacheva, pe kawa yako yawa, lejer yako hiwe tene songs.
Today we had the fortune of listening to many of you here today. And what you had to say was very profound and vast in your method of combining what you said. And I first would like to acknowledge this.
Deni tangone da waji chena ji digi thola ya ta ngarang ge hi ase kaya mendo ina yang ta dwala ya ji long ani ngarang ta dile hi mendo se ma de na ani ngarang ya ngo chasares.
In general, I have nothing really to say beyond this, and if I was to just sit down and not say anything, then it might be quite embarrassing. So I'm up here for this fact.
Yang chena ma na yi na yang oh da ko ya ji lo ma de song ka ri na san be yang to wa chen bu ji yong gres.
And if I was merely just to get up and then sit back down, you might have some doubt, or you might think something very strange is going on.
아니 딘데 송자 나랑 고 마차야 치롱서 도바 쳔보 메용위 체데 나게 틱스지시기
Therefore, to keep me from a red face of embarrassment and you from giving rise to a lot of doubt, I will just speak briefly on a couple points.
네 드링아서 드발라 다 가르지 십대게 초바 땅하니 쪼네 다다가 발라야 땅아서 데 십대긴데 제건데 로 따버레히 인 로데기 요레스
We here today are actively engaging in a peace ceremony, and we do it regularly every year.
아니 다 안디칼라 체나바 끈드르 다 용서 줘봐 탐치 디기 톨베 직 나서 갈세온다 톡섬 제체기 거니 아니 드발라 법되기 요레스
That being the case, we've all gathered here, or you have all gathered here today with the intention, with the correct mind to gather together for this reason.
다 던드베 가서 십대 세대 다 가르레세나 어레 다 베네 십대 세대 용야가 베네 자와다고 가와니 젠질라 라레고레 아니 젠데 스니 종아 제당 아니 낭라 제 남바 니다워지 제당 삼는 방고레스
Peace or happiness, these two qualities that we seek for, that we have gathered here today for this reason, can be described in two differentiations or two categories.
다 츠루니 젠데 다 바제가 드발시에 고사 마레 데 하정급에 사보레 가르세디 베는 가서 츠루니 십대 용약이 체데 아니 나서베 자컵 소소란 타니 마음에 빼망보 요레 양 디나로라 폴리세 빼망보 요레 디나로라 츠라데 마상 소소급에 강발란 데네지니 다라든데 요레
The first distinction that arises as a condition for peace is that of the outer condition, which is, as we can see in our world, based upon the army, upon police, upon rules, regulation, that this in fact creates some sort of peaceful habitat.
아니 디나로다나 강바요레
In there we have houses.
강발 고요레
We have a door with houses. We have a door with a lock.
안가서 디노드발베 사야 동야 차장베 다당가서 다들 제체는 대요레
In that house we have a lot of things prepared that are food and condiments in our house. We have everything prepared in there.
대 손자베 가서 츠루급에 협대 용야다 대 망보지기다 베 썸노 동 레가제 차장 차야스
That in general, the outer conditions of peace, that of preparing an outward condition of it, is intact. We have all the means to collect that.
다이나 양 가서 디기 나로라 다 든들다고지 짠보 야보 여바이나 다른 양베 셈바 찍고지 매바이나 안 나은게 협대데 매나 깔레 커버지 차도와스
But is it not the case that if we possess all the outward conditions of peace, but lack the fundamental thing called the mind, and if that mind, if we lack the fundamental thing called peace in the mind, is that not something to talk about?
베랑아서 지우충충지 세게 아니 강바지노 쯔야바이나 쯔야반다고지 차르고도 와스 나로를 찍고 매봐 슬로 야보지 지우충충지 세게
It's like hiding gold. If we haven't understood this point, it's like keeping gold concealed in a small box.
덴데지 손자 아니 당가서 나로급에 셈바 찍고데 매바이나 아니 잡로를 찾진 가른 좀나요 갈레 커버지 차드이어레스
And if we lack this quality of peace of mind, then is it not the case that our outward condition of viewing the world, or whatever is gathered in the outward condition of the world, we see as not really sufficient.
ngaso kare jik nanglo le semba jik bo me chad kala ani chamsa jik chamcha jin royan da boda ani wi thong ne be jik ara thong yan da bo ta jik lengka jik bo le cham yan da bo o tindis ma do thakshi shira thagum do
that when we lack this fundamental peace of mind, that we find ourselves walking alone, going for long walks by ourselves, maybe drinking a lot, enjoying a lot of drinks, drinking our troubles away.
Da ye be ne ji nang ge semba de ji zhong yan de ta je dang nga so be chulo tham ji no ne yong de yo des.
Now for the quality of peace of mind, we can say there are there in all traditions and all of views of Dharma or religion, they have this fundamental peace of mind.
Be chulo de ye tham ji la xin ni zang xin ni zong de dan de ji so so ge semba de zong tu ya ji de semba de ji zhong te ya nga so chulo chama ani ji ba cha de.
That this quality of peace, that finding the meditation quality of calm abiding, is adherent in all traditions and all religions.
Da digi nani be da nga so da ji na ta nang ba sanji ba se de ji ready orders.
And it is apparent in our tradition, that of the Buddhist tradition, where we find these qualities also.
Da terrain be nga dwala yang lubdi kala lobju ji ra song be da dwala ani nga sun di longba khorang ge be chulo de jongwa nga de ama zi de nge dendri ge be chulo de yang da nga rang ge be lobju ji ra song.
And when I traveled here, when I came here and learned of the native tradition that is found here, I came to learned that the tradition that you follow was that you recognize and see all the elements as fundamental elements of the mother or the earth.
De nga so pe nang ba ge nang lo la yang ani jongwa nga de yang ngas nga so ge yang ya ge ye ji ba de xiang.
That in our tradition, or the tradition of that I follow from Tibet, we adhere also to this fundamental understanding of the elements as being the 5 female elements, the deity of the 5 female deity elements.
Benan jongwa nga de me na nga so me yang yong sa ma de sim jian yang yong sa ma de za me do xin gan yang yong sa ma de de jin de nga so ge mas look at those.
That sentient beings, life itself, we humans, the grass, the compound, the makeup of everything comes through these 5 elements. That these are the elements that make us up, and we call this the mother.
Da de cei ma de nang ge ma ji na ani dong ni qian bo dang ning ji qian bo de ani nga so ge ma se yos.
And while the representation of the mother is adherent in these 5 elements on an inner sense can be understood as emptiness or shunyata.
Dong ni qian bo de ning ji qian bo de me na san ji yang yong sa ma de zang jiu shen ba yang yong sa ma de gan yang yong ta sa ma de.
That this inner element or elements of emptiness, shunyata, and great compassion infused together, that lacking these 2 elements, we, or bodhisattvas and Buddhas, cannot arise. Therefore, we call this we can say, mother, or the female form, essence. And if we want to consolidate all these 5 elements that represent the mother, they can be concisely concealed into one female form.
de ma jig de ne nang je na to ni jing je che ane tseta de je ne di ta da nga so great mothers ko ka se ma che bo se ki do se ma ye de ya tik no la tam ni ma cha san de ka la de ne be ma che bo se nga so te la ku ya.
Why the inequality of these 5 elements, that of the representation of the mother, or the female form, are outwardly displayed and inwardly understood to be emptiness infused with compassion, we can combine these 2 points to come to the establishment of the form of the Great Mother, as translated here, as the form of the Great Mother. The statue that is apparent here on the land is a representation of these qualities.
Ani tanga so denis honzan di jonga chemo de ma yamba tang. Re ma yamba de ye tamchi nga so lo tong tha mangpu chi gi ngwe ni ani nga so yong no ya ba yis.
That this coming about, the arising of these elements as defined as female in essence, have been explained previously in the sutras of the past.
Ben guru mbuchi ge song du kala jongwa dra lan sakyu nyambe che senje mugi ne je zeba na yin te song me ba so an dab sen ni ben jongwa nga de ani nga so ge ma is nga ma nga so jongwa nga la te ji nga so ma se na re robo se na re nga so te le te ni jong do song yes guru mbuchi pa bi kabla so ba te bala nga so choma robo yin sin jongwa nga de.
At the time of the great Guru Rinpoche, when he arrived, he had these profound statements to say that we all came from these elements, these 5 elements. But in the future, we will be separated and controlled. The elements will control us. And strife, and there will be much strife. Therefore, we can say that Guru Rinpoche had the premonition to lay this out before us.
Maung bit so la njongwa de tamchi ngarang lan semje di dra long do gres song yo res long dai ji che de ting sang tu la ta ta cha yo res.
When Guru Rinpoche said, in the future, the elements will become a force to reckon with, or we can say an enemy. That in our time, it is apparent that that the elements themselves have a sense of attacking.
Di ben ta ta ngune dra long yo de ta nga so chla ina do do nang kha la ina do do ta ka sa ka le chin cha sa ta ben zam le ma nyam cha chim do do as ta di nga so sem je le ne o do as.
It's very apparent in our water and in our air that they're both polluted, that there is a sense of disruption in these elements, that Guru Rinpoche's exact revelation of this was correct.
Ani de ka se de njungwa ge zuba ma yi mu zuba is yang de ang Guru Rinpoche song yo res de na man je manam je wa is mu ge zuba res song res.
And a very other pith point that the Guru Rinpoche had to offer. The elements do not change. The people, the time does not change. It is the people that change. That it is not the time that is changing. It is the people who transform the elements that is changed.
That didn't take a long time, but I think to say Tada Johnson. They change the decala couldn't do with Jane Pangris, long time yore, and Ducala, to say Tata Jundu, good is Zuna, Pentogres, long time Banaki, then Pentogres having our solar each years.
That given the prophecy by Guru Rinpoche about these coming occurrences that have appeared in our time, that given the understanding of the elements themselves, I am certain that combining this with the understanding of placing a statue to represent good fortune, then I also, as it is said, that putting the objects of statues will be of benefit. I also have sincere faith in this quality of benefit given these circumstances. This is not just based upon benefiting ourselves here at the center, nor at the EWAM Center, nor benefiting just a particular person. It is placed this statue for the benefit of all sentient beings, for all life that can come and see this. This is the true this is the benefit.
Yeah. And the Ganagi Dangaso dig Nanula when they tani get Nang Samba Gangana with bed Pameva Toyala and it takes in Yananda. The Gomda woman with Gibetiore, the Angasota and the Val of Junte Digiore.
That currently at this place we are engaging in meditation, and if one wants to relieve from some sort of suffering, then meditation and through practice we can arrive there.
And they mean I take the development is of a symbol of Kanga Young and Lemna, and the light don't ball in the day, Yata and the Koran Paji, in the best Semba de Ravoji Yoris, take a Semba de Ma, Lulu Chanoya. They got wrong to pay Semba de Hide Yak. Ched and they could so Yoris.
We practice and do this in front of the statue, and if you do not do this, just allowing yourself to look at this statue and understand its qualities, your mind will automatically become calm. It will rest. It will settle down in a way that will allow you peace and happiness. For this reason, the statue itself has been established.
Ani de sonza ta dig nalola ani rupa chenge ani chirong song ne tan tunjur chenge ta korang be yong se zoba chela ani nge ke dana thamo jar che ni ani maung ba nga so lo tong tha jing ning ge ani semje de so ya ka nga se thwe chi ani ngarang ge reba che gi yo chena ba ge tena ji na ro chi thu ji che.
I would like to sincerely thank everyone that who helps at this center, who has been connected with the center, that anyone who has given their time. It is my sincere aspiration that for the time to come, for 1,000, 2,000 years, that this place remains. This is my sincere aspiration, and I thank you very much.
And it Tegana yi be train the balanga so ye mambo tan song, Yaudo mambo jiao song, Narangatan and Mutamape, Sembati Bodawon Tong songs.
That we have engaged in lots of song and dance and enjoyed together this time. I've really enjoyed this.
Dundawoji, Semje Tsama, Tutaware Yongage, and Naranga, Malaji Tawi, Chenabagan, the Malaja.
My aspiration, I wish to make an aspiration that not only us today who have enjoyed this freedom or the happiness, that always and for all time, permanently, that all sentient beings enjoy this this happiness that we've enjoyed here today. So now I would like to make a brief aspiration prayer.
Sonam de tam che se ba ni thom na ni be dana phom de che ga nam che ba lon thu ba yin se ben so len ro ba shu ani tham che la Tukjiche, and thank you.
Everyone, thank you very much.
And I want us to give a hand of appreciation to the translator. This is the first time he's translated for Kempo La. And without our translators, Lama Somo often is one. And we would have no conduit to really understand any of the great wisdom that comes from these teachers. So thank you, Kempo, very, very much.